Hi, welcome to the Sweet Slumber podcast, the good, the bad, and the sleep deprived. I am your host, Meredith Bruff. I'm a wife, a mother of 5, a childcare expert, and a sleep coach. I'm here to teach you the most effective sleep advice for infants and young children. With my guidance, sleep will become something that you look forward to again, and you will feel rested. I believe that motherhood is the most important and demanding role that we have, but the challenges and accomplishments that go along with it go unnoticed frequently. We are going to talk openly about these things so that we can draw strength and compassion from each other. I will share my perspective as a seasoned mother and help you experience more fulfillment. Hello, everyone. Today I'm going to be meeting with my friend, Madalina Brencus, and I don't say her name right because she's from Romania and she has a much better way of saying it. We're going to discuss my series, What's Wrong with Traditional Sleep Training. Hi, Madalina.
Hi, Meredith.
Thank you for being a guest on my show.
Thank you for having me.
So I want to tell you about Madalina. She has quite the background. I love talking to her. She's very knowledgeable. She's a medical resident in child and adolescent psychiatry in Romania. And she's always loved being around children. She used to babysit for her aunt when she was younger. And now she's also a certified sleep coach through my training. And she's enrolled in a university sleep program as well. Have you finished that?
Not yet. I still have 1 more week or 2.
Oh, wow. You're getting close. Yeah.
Yeah.
So Madalina has 1 child. Her daughter is named Thaisa. I'm glad I asked you how to say it. But after having Thaisa, a passion grew for helping children sleep better. And she also loves helping parents understand their children's sleep needs. She wanted to support struggling mothers after experiencing sleep deprivation and anxiety as a new mom. So that's why her interest in sleep grew and her interest for supporting parents. And it all started when she reached out to me and she was seeking help and guidance. She discovered the world of gentle sleep teaching, which is one of the terms I use, and the world of supporting babies' needs during times of intense development. It became her number 1 goal to teach parents to follow their intuition and understand what their baby's needs are. That's a passion of mine as well. I totally get it. She developed a passion for sleep research and science and is currently working hard to learn everything she can on this topic to bring the knowledge to this team, my team, and to the parents that we support. And a lot of other parents, because you are very active in teaching people in your country as well, aren't you?
Thank you very much for passing this passion on to me.
Oh, you're welcome. Yeah. So on Instagram, you post often educating parents, don't you?
Yeah.
Would you call yourself a research nerd?
Yeah, I think so. I am still one because I still have to go back to work, and I think that will slow down a little bit.
Having time for research.
Yeah.
So you've been trying to do as much learning as you can, which is really amazing. This is one thing about Madalina. She was in my membership site that I had open for about a year. And she was the one person who viewed every video. I made a video every week and I had guests every week. She was so amazing. And the other thing about her is I could say to her, hey, Madalina, will you write this or will you read this or will you share this information with me? And she'll have it done that same day. And I don't know how you do that when you're a mom.
Well, I have sleep problems. I cannot, and I don't want to sleep.
That's how she has fear of missing out and it's hard to go to sleep. And then I make her stay up when I give her those assignments. So I got to stop.
We can use my nature, to our benefit.
Yes, and I'm the same way, so it works for us. So I want to explain the purpose of this discussion before we go on any further. So I'm making this podcast series to educate parents about the popular but outdated practice of using cry it out and Ferber. These techniques are not a good fit for many babies, and they may have lasting consequences on our children. So before you choose an approach for improving sleep, it's important to understand your child's needs. And that's why we're doing this. Madalina, what are some of your concerns about traditional sleep training?
Well, I think the first one is that it doesn't feel natural. I cannot imagine one mother to be able to say, I don't want to go to my baby when he cries, or I don't need to go to him because he's fine. I can ignore him. And it's all the other way around, because most moms use earbuds or something to be able to ignore that. So going against our instinct feels really bad.
I get it. I think we're going to talk a lot about many different aspects of the old-fashioned sleep training, but this is just one of them. I actually just saw it in an article the other day. A woman was trying to be very kind, but she was explaining how she would talk to a client about using Ferber or Cry It Out, and she included the line, do not go back into your baby's room no matter what.
This is so sad. It's so sad. We don't use Ferber or Cry It Out here in Romania because we have paid maternity leave for 2 years. So we don't have that much pressure to solve the sleep issues. But we still have crying methods here. But hearing about Ferber and Cry It Out and these particular ones, it makes my heart so sad. Because I know there is always another option. You can always find something else to do, or you can always reach out to Meredith.
And Madalina.
Yeah.
I think that's why we're doing this series, because I really just want parents to understand what's wrong with that. It's not good to ignore your intuition or your natural feelings, like Madalina was saying, because you have a connection with your child, and that connection is important to never break. It's something that will help you meet their needs. It's important to never ignore your baby's cries. It's important to always stay in tune. And one of the reasons we need to stay in tune is that you're the one person in the whole world who understands your baby's needs because of that intuition, because of that connection that you've been forming and your experience with your child. And I think what happens is that parents forget that there's other things that are more important than sleep because they're so tired.
Yeah. Yeah, if it were only sleep, but we cannot be perfect parents during the day or during all our other activities. So we got this wrong, we do something wrong, I don't know, maybe screaming or just something like that. And the baby learns, even though he cannot remember the precise words or the fact that we yelled or that we didn't go to him when he cried. But the brain for sure learns something about the environment, the actions, the interactions between us.
Yeah. And, for a little while there, in my work, I understood when people got really desperate, and I gave them like the gentlest, kindest time check plan that had, limits, and you could always be in tune to your intuition and stop. But I mean, it's been like a year that I've been so passionate that there's never a good time to force things. I know parents get really, really desperate because, they've been so sleep deprived and their mental health suffering. But I think a better thing to do is just to ask for more help, to ask for grandma to come, and your spouse, your partner, and hire a night doula, do all the things you can to get through that period, because I believe so strongly that there's a need there, that there's a reason that child is still waking. There's a reason that they're still needy at night. It's not just being spoiled. It's not just that they're out of control.
Yeah, exactly. That is my opinion too. It's really hard by advising parents not to use these crying methods. We are not saying what you're going through is not important or your mental health is not important, but the baby is the one helpless and we need to be there for him. It's not the other way around.
Well, and
it's hard.
You're
it's
really
hard.
good example of this. You're not just saying this. You have been through this.
Yeah.
And you've chosen to co-sleep to get through. And have you seen some changes though in Thaisa since you you know, you were applying nature, you were teaching security, you were doing some of the things, not everything, because you weren't worried about independent sleep.
Yeah.
So what kind of changes did you see in her when you were patient?
Well, she always had a hard time during regressions, whether that was mental leap or growth spurt or teething. And but when all this calmed down, she was really able to connect sleep cycles because she knew I'm near her. And even if I went to the bathroom or to cook something or just to read a book in the other room, she didn't wake up crying. And slowly she got to connect sleep cycles by herself and sleep more during the night. Yeah, I can remember she was waking up every 2 hours, I think so, when she was 18 months still. And suddenly, during teething and the 18th month mental leap, she started connecting 5, 6, 7 hours at night. And I couldn't believe it. Yeah. It was a long wait, but worth it.
Yeah. And what about her behavior and her personality? Is she changed? Like, was she more clingy and now she's a little more independent? Have you seen that happen?
Yeah, it's such a big difference. She was only wanted to stay with me. She cried whenever I went out, and now I just kiss her and she looks at me and said bye bye, and just like that. I mean, she didn't needs to hear that I'll be back or she'll be back. She just go, okay, I'm gonna have fun, and that's that.
So this is during the day, like when you leave her with someone, is that
Yeah. And during the night, she doesn't cry. If I'm not besides her, because she goes to sleep earlier than me, she just, if she wakes up, she sits and waits for me.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And this is because, number one, I think because you've been patient. Number two, you've met her needs always. And number three, there's been some things that you've worked on to try and help her become that way, right?
For sure.
I just think it's so beautiful. And I love getting like a testimonial, someone who's been doing this stuff for the last year, you know, and seeing the changes naturally, because that's what child development specialists teach us, is that if we're patient and we don't push our kids to become independent, it will happen, right?
Yeah, I can testify it.
They won't have this baggage, this underlying problem that is going to be at the root of different problems in their future. So it's really cool.
Yeah, for sure.
I love it. Okay, back to your concerns. Child psychiatrist in training, right?
Yeah.
Which means she's just going to finish her residency because she's been on maternity leave for a long time. It's such a blessing that she's been able to do that.
Yeah, and it's still not enough. I'm not ready to go back.
I know. Yeah. So what other concerns do you have about sleep training, or just a lot of crying and about happen quickly?
My other concern is about the idea of self-soothing, which is absolutely not possible until 4, 5, 6 years of age. Yeah, it's our brain wiring is not yet developed to be able to self-soothe. Everything that babies do emotionally, they do it through us, by mimicking us, by hearing our words, by feeling us. So everything is through co-regulation. So they can self-soothe, if I can say it, but it's not self-soothing. It's a detachment, because they are suffering too much when they are left to cry alone. So Dr. Gordon Neufeld calls it defensive detachment or defensive shutdown. They simply become so stressed, even though they are not crying their lungs out. They are so stressed that their brains just go off.
Yeah, they just shut down.
Yeah, and it's not a good thing. They are not learning something good. This may be paving the road for avoidant attachment.
Which is
Because another thing is that using cried out or Ferber doesn't mean mental leaps are not going to come again. And you have to repeat it again and again and again with your baby. So
Yeah.
it's not one time in life event.
Yeah. The pattern that I usually see is that whenever a child starts having sleep disruptions again, the parents are like, oh, you must be teething. Okay, let me be there for you. And then they get tired and they're like, oh, this is going on too long. Oh no, I've created a bad habit. Oh no, my child's sleep's going to fall apart. And they stop listening to their intuition. They cut off that connection with their child and they decide to do Ferber, cry it out again out of desperation. And so I have a hard time with this because I think, well, what part of you thinks that their child can handle the teething or the leap, and then all of a sudden just start sleeping well again when you can see that they're still teething or they're still in the leap. And it's just so hard. I know it's a very confusing world. Even my clients, I have to reassure that it's okay and that you have to keep waiting and that it's going to be okay. And there's just so many mixed messages that we get from the things that we read, and it gets very confusing.
Yeah, and although parents know about mental leaps, they think about sleep training when they are during a mental leap or any kind of regression. But it's definitely not the time to try sleep training, or because this is a time when the sleep is disrupted because they are aching, because they are in pain in general, or feel buzzed, or I don't know. I wish they could tell us.
I know. I think that's one of the confusing parts too, is not just what we read that confuses us. It's our kids can't really clearly tell us their needs.
And we don't have ways to measure it.
Yeah. And there's no way for them to say, look, this is really going to affect me long term.
Yeah.
If you do this, it's going to hurt me or it's going to hurt us. But so for a long time, I didn't really talk about what's wrong with sleep training because I was so focused on what's good about being supportive and responsive and using methods that are little to no crying. But now I just want to talk about it more because I think it's so important for people to understand. But back to that, the benefits of being supportive and responsive are huge because it actually helps a baby's brain and body develop optimally. And then all of the other ways too, physically, mentally, spiritually, socially, did I say mentally, and intellectually. It's amazing. Every single way that they develop will be optimal from being responsive and teaching security and being patient through these terrible regressions. So it's just so worth it. Besides that, you were talking about the self-soothing part. That's something that they learn through co-regulation too. They learn how to calm themselves as we're supportive. So why not, right?
Yeah. This is how they develop those mirror neurons. They mimic us and they learn how to self-soothe.
Yeah. And I've
but
heard
it's only until later.
Yes, it takes time. I think it was Vanessa Lapointe who talks about how the neurons are trained. You know, you make a path every time you soothe your child and you're supportive. This path becomes stronger of when I'm upset, I calm down. My parents are always there for me. And by the time they're 4 or 5, when their brain's developed enough, they can start to do that for themselves. It's so amazing. So kind of on that same topic, you shared some concerns with me before about it being a miracle thing when we sleep train. You already kind of talked about it, but like, you explain that a little bit more.
Yeah, about the way they advertise it. I know everything's about marketing and stuff like that because it's a business. But when parents read about it, they get the idea that they only have to do it once, and then their baby is going to be solved. And it's wrong. It's really wrong because, as I said, you have to repeat it again, and you think about repeating it again after or during a mental leap or teething, or and it's not something worth it on the long run.
Yeah.
So don't bite the
Don't buy into it, right?
yeah.
And I was thinking about this when you mentioned it a little bit ago, that I've seen parents, I've met parents who have kids. It worked on sleep training, helped their child sleep really well for a long time. And then a regression came again around 18 months. That's a pretty common one, or maybe at 2, and sleep fell apart, and they tried it again, but it didn't work. And I think what happens is these kids become more aware, and they're like, look, I really need support. So no, I'm not going to give up. Or they're so like, it depends on a temperament too, which we'll talk about in a minute. Some kids are just so sensitive, they absolutely need your support, or they feel so rotten that they just won't give up. Some babies will cry for hours. So that's I don't know, that's why I'm just like, just do it right in the beginning. You don't you don't want to inflict this on your child. You don't want to put them through this and have them
I think it's expectation thing.
It is.
Yeah, before becoming a parent, you think about all the other parents are doing something wrong. I don't know what to do. Yeah, and then reality hits you in the face.
Yeah, in like a whole bunch of ways. So many of our expectations are wrong.
So I think that's another thing we need to work on. Lowering our expectations and helping future parents lower their expectations.
On themselves. And then on your child, understanding what's developmentally appropriate, which is kind of why we're talking about this, is I really want parents to understand these things. Like, if your expectations are based on false things, it's not
or angelic temperaments.
Yes, it's not going to work out for you the way you're hoping, and you're going to be really frustrated and disappointed, and then possibly damage something in your child's development or the future.
The relationship.
Right. You're
also get
relationship with other people in the future.
The way they view the world.
Yeah. And their ability to handle stress. That's a big one.
That's a huge one.
And that's part of your future, your role in your job is helping little children and maybe older children.
Combine great.
What'd you say?
They combine great. Being a sleep consultant and
a
psychiatrist.
And hopefully in your country, you're going to be seeing fewer children who are damaged by sleep training.
Yeah, I hope so. I work on it.
Yeah, you are working on it. It's awesome. All right. So there's another topic that you brought up with me before, and it is the way there's a lot of pressure on parents that they have to sleep train or their child will never sleep well. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, well, this is easier for us here in Romania because, as I said, we are home for 2 years with our babies, so we have a lot of time to think it through. But I think it's such a lie because babies can always become independent when they are ready to do it. And they will, because I remember my daughter didn't sleep, didn't let me put her down during naps for 4 months. And suddenly she started fighting it. I couldn't hold her anymore. And now she hates it. Yeah. She cries whenever I try, because, she fights being put to sleep. And I tried to rock her again and have her in my arms and sing to her, and she won't take any of that. She just wants to lay down and do her own stuff. Well, and also, so it will come.
What you were saying earlier about her taking these 6 or 7 hour sleep periods at night, you're co-sleeping, and look what happened.
Yeah, and it's also what you said earlier about suddenly they become more aware of what is going on, and now she knows if she wants to go to sleep or not. It's impossible for me to force it on her, no matter how hard I try.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we have to listen more to what they are saying to us. It's hard during the first months or weeks until we get to know our baby, but it's the only thing that matters and helps us.
I love it. That's so perfect. I learned from Dan Seefeld. He was talking about how the child's brain is very much about reading nonverbal cues, like our expressions and those things that aren't really words. You know, all of that is what they are attuned to for the first 2 years. And that it's our job to get back in touch with that side of our brain and with our intuition and our gut, to be able to connect with them and understand them. And I think that's why it's so hard in those first few months, because for how many years, 15, 20, 30 years, depending on how old you are when you have your child. So I can say 40, right?
Yeah.
Most of us have a few years of being, you know, innocent like children, but at some point we start really focusing on the logical side, and that's who we are. And then focusing back into that intuitive and instinctive side of ourselves. It's definitely not the prime focus. And so all of a sudden you have a child and that's all you have.
Yeah.
You can't just be logical anymore. Like, it just doesn't work. I mean, it's just, I think that's why it's so hard, but it's so important.
Yeah, I just watched the video. A friend of mine sent it to me about matrescence. I don't know if you heard about it. We don't have the word here in Romania, and we are trying to borrow it and translate it. But it explains perfectly all the change we are going through when we become moms.
Yeah.
So it's definitely something to look up.
Yes. And I have an episode about that. I think it's episode 6. So it's super important to understand that you're changing too, that you're a totally different person. And it's good if you think of that word to compare that to adolescence.
Yeah, that's where it comes from.
Yeah, you're not going to ever go back and be who you were before. You can't go back. For some people, the body, you can never go back. And definitely not like emotionally, mentally.
Oh no.
No.
You become a totally different person. Yeah, in so many levels.
I know. It's so funny. The one thing that occurs to me is, like, I remember having a new baby and like having to try really hard to remember to think about my husband. That's so bad.
Hope he won't hear it.
Because he doesn't listen to these. But yeah, like, I remember being like, oh man, he used to be, you know, at least half of what I thought about during the day or when we were together or whatever. And now I'm like, oh yeah, I have a husband. He needs me too. Ooh, how do I do that? I don't even have time for me. Yeah, it's craziness, isn't it?
Yeah, for me it was easier because my husband was at work almost 16 hours when we had our daughter.
Yeah, so he came home to sleep. He probably didn't have much time together.
Yeah.
How old is she now?
2, almost 2.
Oh, and have you figured that part out?
I think so.
It comes. You get to a point where your child isn't quite so demanding and they're easier to take care of, and your husband's able to help. And then you find that it comes naturally. Now I had
it's easier because she's really independent right now. Sorry for
no, you're good.
Interrupting.
More independent now, that makes it work, right?
Yeah, she plays by herself and I can do stuff around her. It's definitely something else.
I think that's an important thing to remind yourself. If you have a high needs child or a spirited child, a child who's sensitive too, just being sensitive, it means they need a lot more from you. And so you have to give yourself grace, because you can only do so much. And your husband is capable of taking care of himself.
Oh, for sure.
It's hard on a marriage because you feel bad And they're like, wait, what happened?
Yeah, I'm
So
here too.
just understand that you have to approach it differently. It's new to you because you're a new parent, so you're probably comparing yourself to what other people are able to do, and that's the dangerous part. But just know that you're going to figure it out, and your child will
Yeah.
get easier in some ways.
Yeah. Every period has its hard.
Yeah. Well, so what we started out talking about, I'm going to go back to really quick. We were
Yeah.
saying there's no way your baby can sleep independently unless you do cry it out, and or it's Ferber. And the reason I bring it up again is because I think I like to share with people that I have met many people in my successful sleep group who didn't do any sleep training. They had this huge goal of being intuitive, being connected to their child, and being patient. And they just wanted to listen to their heart that said, feed my child to sleep. Go ahead and co-sleep or whatever it is. And by the way, when I talk about co-sleeping, I always want people to safely co-sleep. So look for the La Leche League Safe Sleep 7 so that you're doing this safely. But they did whatever was intuitive and instinctive, and their kids slept great. And people tell me all the time, like, I don't have to do this. It doesn't feel right. I'm not going to do this. And then, you see a lot of people on Instagram who just have this blissful life. They're well rested because they're doing these things as well. So I just think it's so important for anyone who feels strongly that this is the only way, sleep training is the only way. It's not true. One of the reasons I have a job is that co-sleeping or feeding to sleep doesn't work for everyone. And some babies still sleep really poorly, or parents are patient for 18 months or 2 years and they're so sleep deprived, they just really want to focus on a little bit of independence. But I only teach independence in a loving way, and it's also just encouraging, not forcing. So I just wanted to say that I've met a lot of people who had good sleepers, who fed to sleep, rocked to sleep, co-slept, whatever.
Yeah, but this is also the case when parents need our help. So we are not forcing kids, but we are helping them see that they are safe, even though we are not constantly breastfeeding them during the night. And that doesn't help. So we can try and figure out how we can help them meet their needs, but help ourselves and the parents.
Yeah, I love that.
This is what you do, what I've learned from you.
Yeah. It's a balance. There's a lot of moving parts. We have to be aware of our needs. We have to be aware of our child's needs. And I guess we found a way to kind of make it all work together.
What I became mostly passionate about is temperament and sleep. And looking at sleep from different angles, because babies are not the same. And this is what I've learned from you, from all the workshops I've watched. Yeah, and it really makes sense. You won't teach every baby how to walk the same way, or everything is tied to what they prefer or what they like, or how they do things, how they like to be, I don't know. Everything is connected to their temperament. And I think this is also intuitive for us because they inherit it from us, whether it's a mix between the parents or more like one, but it comes intuitively to us because we recognize some things in them and we know how to act. And this is the same with sleep. I know, seeing me and knowing how long it takes me to slow down and calm and fall asleep, and it's exactly the same way for my daughter. And yeah. Even though I have no, I don't know if I have an explanation. I have a few, but I know how it feels. Yeah. So I must be patient, and I can be patient because I get it.
That's really helpful. I feel concerned about parents whose children are nothing like them. It's super hard. I think it happens a lot when the children are more like dad or an uncle or grandma and grandpa. When it comes to being like spirited or really sensitive, it's super hard because then you really don't have that like inner sense of this is what it's like for my child. But there's a lot of parents in this boat, and the same principles apply though. Your intuition is going to help you understand your child and their needs. And that may not be that you can relate to them, but you'll still get them, and you'll still be able to predict them, and you'll be able to know what is a good idea and what's a bad idea. And I when I work with people, I absolutely rely on that knowledge that they have. We'll talk about a method and I'll say, does that sound like a good idea? And they'll be like, no. And I think that happened a lot more in the beginning when I was first learning about sensitive and spirited children. I don't mess up quite as much anymore, but I still want to know from parents, does that feel right? Does that sound like a good idea? Because of intuition. So yeah, I think the biggest thing that you brought up that we need to remember is just that they're all very different, and that we cannot use a one size fits all approach.
And we can just try things. If something doesn't work, try something else, and so on.
That's actually something that Laura talked about, Laura Gainch, when I had my interview with her, was like, if parents would just stop expecting someone else to tell them what to do, or being afraid, like, I'm going to mess up my kid, or this is the wrong thing, or, I don't know why we're so afraid, but just experiment, just try different things. And
I think we are afraid because we read so much from the sleep training industry that we have to do like that, or we're gonna end up with a bad habit, and moms get scared because they don't know the explanations, they don't know the whole idea,
they don't have the whole
picture. The whole picture. That was the word.
Well, what I was just thinking about is how the sleep groups on Facebook, there'll be like 100,000, 50,000, 30,000, whatever, huge numbers of people joining these groups that are about Cry It Out and Ferber. And they go to someone that's either a sleep consultant or an experienced mom, and they expect them to tell them what to do. Sometimes I see a reference to a book in my mind that it doesn't matter because it's still wrong. And the people giving advice are saying things like, you have to be 1,000% consistent. It didn't work because you weren't consistent. It didn't work because you went back in, you confused your child. I mean, I've seen things from specialists that are totally incorrect, like, your child can learn to work it out on their own. Leave them alone. Don't confuse them. Don't go back in. If they cry harder when you go back in, you're just confusing your child. So don't go back in. All these things that are incorrect. But here's hundreds of thousands of parents going into these groups expecting to figure it out and find the right answers. So I feel like my voice is just a teeny tiny voice in a little tiny corner. And I just want people to know, like you were talking about, in your bio, you were talking about helping parents understand their kids' needs. And I know we've talked a lot about a lot of needs, but I like to go back to the regression topic. During a regression, that is like the most important time for you to know your child's temperament and be in tune and trust your intuition. Do you agree?
And know that it's a period of time. It's hard. It's absolutely hard, but it's going to pass away, and you don't have to sleep train to get out of it. It will pass away once the developmental stage is finished.
So understanding what's going on is huge. So if you know, hey, look, sleep changed suddenly, behavior changed, all of a sudden my child's so clingy, think about that. Okay, this is a sudden change. Something's going on. It's not just I did something wrong that my child's acting. That didn't happen. Your child is, acting smarter, acting older. You can tell they're teething. You can tell because of separation anxiety, whatever the signs are. Like, that's what we need to tune into, and then just let go of all of the messages we've heard and just parent from the heart and focus on your child and their needs, and like push everything away and just be like, I am here with you. You're going through something hard, and so am I. And let's just ignore all that other stuff, because you are what matters. We're both struggling, and it's just confusing, overwhelming, and filling you with fear and frustration to pay attention to the other stuff, right?
Yeah, and just maybe take it day by day, or even hour by hour. If
minute by minute, whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just be patient, and be patient with you and with your child.
Yeah. When you hold your child because they don't want you to lay them down, they don't want you to walk out of the room, so they're screaming, that's a message. They can't explain what they feel. So you have to tune into that body language or those cries or screams and realize this is a need, a deep need. Your child is not spoiled. They're not being brats. They're like, look, mom, you are everything to me, and I need you right now, so please don't leave. That is the only thing we should be focused on, not thinking that we can never teach our child to sleep well, because like you said, it's going to end. You can always teach a child to sleep well. It doesn't matter how old they are, and it's going to be okay. It's going to get better. Otherwise, come to us, because we can totally help you. We can help you through it, and we can help you later with the sleep part.
Yeah, and Jane, maybe just listen to you and tell you that your intuition is right.
Yes. I agree. That's huge. And it feels good to have someone tell you that. Yeah. I've had people come to me just for that. Like, okay, I just want to know that what I'm doing is right. And then they feel totally better afterward. Like, I didn't
that's my case too.
Yeah, I remember. Well, thank you, Madalina, for sharing your wisdom and your knowledge and your experience with us. It's been truly inspiring.
Yeah, thank you for having me again, and sorry for my babbling.
You're fine. You did not.
I know. It's okay. I'm Romanian.
You did great, and I know our listeners are enjoying it. So will you tell everyone where they can find you?
Well, I am on Instagram around povestea unei ghinduțe, fără diacritice, and that's the same name on Facebook. And you'll have the link for my Facebook group, where you can add questions about everything you need to know. Maybe just vent out.
What's the name of the Facebook group, though?
Somn copii, normalitate și echilibru.
Yes, and I know the English-speaking people are going, huh? Don't worry, I will give you notes. And a lot of what Madalina posts is in Romanian on Instagram. I always
it's for Romanians.
I hit translation and I read what she has to say. But I know there'll be a lot of Romanians who are excited to learn about you and follow you. And Madalina is also one of my sleep coaches. So if you go on my website, sweetslumbertime.com, and you click on about, you're going to find her there. And if you love her, like you should, you can work with her. So just reach out to me and let me know that you had a connection with Madalina, and I will connect you if you don't connect with her yourself. You don't have to speak Romanian. We can test her English all we want, right?
It's better in writing.
You can't even tell that she's native Romanian in her writing, and it's the speaking part where she's like, what are you doing to me?
I need practice. I need more practice to be comfortable.
And you did great. So thank you, listeners, for being here and spending time with us today. Please share this episode so we can educate exhausted parents and support their children. Take care and come back soon. Thank you for listening to the Sweet Slumber podcast, the good, the bad, and the sleep deprived. If you enjoyed the show today, please take a moment to write a review, leave a rating, and subscribe so you won't miss future episodes. This will also help more mothers find my show. Thanks for listening.